hazeh. So, even Claudia, the three dargis, three Inyanim the Rebbe spoke, and the way the Rebbe connects it to the end, there is Bias Mashiach, two Inyanim and Bias Mashiach. One Inyan is that the world is going to be in the Eifen, that's going to be Behesim with Holocaust. And let's speak when we get to the Adam Prati. There's the Metzias Adam, and there's the fact, the mitzvah is that he has to permeate his brain with the knowledge of the Eibishter. So that's all in Yonam and Elokus. Verstehen Gentlichkeit, the Elokus is mit Sanz Mapi Seichel, the Elokus is Hecher von Seichel. The Nachi Faran, the Yidiyah Rishenim, which is the Sibba for everything, which is the Nekudah, surrounded Etzim. What's the, how does the, I mean, there's Kama Prat, the Rebbe speaks where we speak about the Indian of Atzmusay, L'umas, the Indian of Shleimus and Milas, and the other Indian the Rebbe speaks. But when they get to the end is that every other Pchina is attached to another Indian besides for its own Mohos. The Atzmos, there's only him. His Metzias is not bound to anything besides for him himself. You see, in Era Blikvo. So Era Blikvo, besteht in them, that's in the Shtakim Velki. So an Era which in Yoni is, Kula Kamika. So his Indian is linked with another Metzias. His Indian is that there's only the Eibush, there's no other Metzias. So his Metzias, there's another Indian outside of him himself. Within Kedusha itself. You see Shloime Sapesechel. So the Invaz Bashtet Elokus Misadarga of Malik Halamim, that Elokus is something which has Shleimos according to Gidra Metzias. So the Elokus is linked to another Indian outside of the Eibush himself. Others is got Erab Ligbo. Mashigin, the Etzem Atzmusay is Donar Emalein. Erbashtet is from Psa Indian, which has Psa Yachas or something else. Yeah, I don't want to chaz over. That's one of the, I mean, the way the Rebbe is magd at the end, that's the, so you see when you get to the mitzvah, there's one Indian that he believes in the Eibishter. Doesn't relate to his being. Sebashtetish and then that he doesn't understand, he's bottled, he's not bottled, there's an Eibishter. And B'meila, what? B'meila is nothing. B'meila, there's a truth that the Eibishter is Meir B'nefesh Adam. Then there's this truth that has to permeate the being. This way, that way, against how it permeates the being. But there's an Etzem which is higher than, and that Etzem does Dar Zachem. This Eibishter which is not bound to any mitzvahs outside of him does Dar Zachem, even in Tzir. What does it mean when you get to L'asad Lavi? There's two. There's the Rebbe says that in Yoneh, we say that L'asad Lavi, every aspect of the mitzvah is going to be with Shleimus. So of course, the Siba of everything is the fact that the Moed is Begilei Niyid. The fact that there's going to be the Manit Shtamtus, the fact that the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. Manit Shtamtus that the Lakus has, the Shleimus Al Peseichel, Shleimus Maamar Seichel. Everything is rooted in Atzmus. And Atzmus, all the words saying, the Kavanah Atzmus is, they should also be in Mitzias. I'll take Tzacham from Atzmus. And now there's in the Aved David. I'll take Tzacham then that the Eibush, from the Emunas Hashem that the Yid has. As a result of that, he's Mizbeinin. Everything begins with the Emunas Hashem. So Al Derech Zeh, the fact that the Torah Mitzvah is going to be the ultimate Shleimus, the Welt is an Aved that's going to be Keli Torah Mitzvah, Manah Shtamtus. Because the Indian of Amar Hu Bez Galus is going to be the Shleimus. Today the Amar Hu Bez Galus is in a very Mitzumtzum Dekaifen. Every Yid, Be'etzim Nishmasi has a Hergish Nalakus. Or Lakus is Meir Bein. L'asad Lavi, the Hamar Hu Bez Galus is going to be the ultimate Shleimus. So what do you see in Bias Melech HaMashiach? That's the Indian of Melech HaMashiach himself. There is Melech HaMashiach is going to affect the world. And there is the Melech HaMashiach himself. The Rebbe teaches not that the fact that Melech HaMashiach is going to affect the world is going to be a Teitzah. It's not B'derech P'ula. It's going to be a Mesubah B'Teitzah. But I'm not going to go through every single prat now. But the point is that, so the Rebbe teaches that Bias Melech HaMashiach. And the Inyani of Melech HaMashiach is a Melech Be'etzim. His Malchus, it means that when you have a Malchus, it's just Kolin Am. That means, I'm saying in the order, if you have a Malchus, someone's Ilui, someone's Esnasis, or the role that he's playing, needs an Am. A regular Melech in Vaz Bashtet Zay Malchus, his Malchus Bashtet in there, that there's an Am that's bottled in. You have a Melech that is Indian, he does not need anything else additional to him himself. His Malchus does not require anything. He's a Melech, Be'etzim. Yan Am, Nishtak Am. His Malchus is not based on anything. That means by him, Vas Paradargan Elokus is made by this year. Rambam says that the Melech HaMashiach is going to be a Melech in Beis David. What's the concept of Melech in Beis David? The Malchus of Beis David is not a Malchus that depends or that's bound to the fact that the world is bottled to the Eibishter. So in Em Betzacherim Begali, the Indian of Atzmus, the Mordu Bezgas. That's in them. Das is ein ganzer Metzias. Yechidish Ben Efshar Echon L'Shibachar. That's the Kovetz that I was saying before. As a result of the fact that this Yid is going to be Nizgala Ba'ilam, a Yid which represents, which through him is Nizgala. The Atzmus of the Eibishter, the Marhub Nizgala, his Metzias, his whole, in Yoneh, this whole Metzias is, that Ba'im Herzach der Mair, that's his whole Metzias, and that's reflected in the fact that he's a Melech Be'etzem, his Malchus, his Ilu, and his Isnasus, his Inyan, is not bound to a Tachten being bottled to him, to any Yachas to a Tachten. He is who he is because that's who he is. No, there's no, he doesn't, mit dem, which that's in other words, the Isgalus of Atzmus, the Mele, the world's also going to be this Aleph. Because once the Eibishter is not defined, so once the Eibishter is here, the Mele, the Mitzvah is also going to be fully permeated by it. That's what the Rebbe says. Kudah number 2 is, Mitvas Vertman, the Rebbe says that everything is Nimshach to Masinu the same. What's the Veda that's Mamshach? This Indian of Mashiach, that the Moir who is Galus. But Pashtus, you cannot be Mamshach the Moir. Amuna. Could a person do anything to be? Could you create? A person wants to understand better. Comes to Hareintracht. Give me his vein. Amuna. If a lukus is nirgish, a lukus is nirgish. If a lukus is Meir in your name, which is Meir, you can't achieve that. The fact that Rebbe speaks over here that Amuna is that the Moir, the etzem is this Galus. A person's mitzias can't get to the Moir. You only get to an image which relates to your mitzias. That to have a shaykhis to Yidi and Atzmos. Der stand weil der Eibishter is made. So, the Asid Lavid is going to be a Yid, which is a Melech Be'etzem, which is Mitzias, is not dependent in any Mitzias outside of his own Mahus itself. So how could we be Mamshechim? The Rebbe says, Alpha became, the Klal is that every single thing which in Nimshal Asid Lavid is through Aveda today. What's the Aveda today? That's Mamshech Melech HaMashiach himself. So the Rebbe says, an Aveda, which in Yoniv, this Aveda is, Ibri Gemekait Tzalakus, without an additional cheshbon. The same with the Melech HaMashiach is Elokus, not the Elokus is connected to Mitzias. Being Birra Mitzias, Bitla Mitzias. Elokus, the Elokus is Ba'atzmei, Amachus B'fnei Atzmos. Al-Derech Zed, what's that Veda, which is Mamshech Melech HaMashiach? A Yid learn Torah Lishma. Learn Torah on a cheshbon. Learn Torah V'adoi der Eibishter. Without, he doesn't connect himself to Elokus. The Elokus is bound to connect it to another Yid. That's the Nekudah close. Nah, that's what we're holding, yeah? You gave an asikum. So we're holding by the now the Rebbe was another prat which the Rebbe spoke before. Is a very important point that there is 2 inyanim in Torah. Talking about the Rebbe's we're going to see later. There's a musig of I'm saying Befin Klali. This is already goes into different, but there's why is there a madish esik at Torah lishma? Why not mitzvahs lishma? Why Torah lishma? Because in mitzvahs you don't connect to that dargan elokus. The elokus is not bound or not connected to another mitzvahs. Because the whole get of a mitzvah is a tzivi to a person. That means that the dargan mitzvahs, the elokus already has a shaykhus to mitzvahs. That is malchus is, so to speak, dependent on the bittul azulas, and therefore there's a command to the azulas. So there in mitzvahs you don't have this Indian. It's not an aveda which has a shaykhus to the Indian of melech hamashiach atzmi. The elokus is batzmusah. Is the Elokus is already being Payla Mitzvahs. It's already the second target. The Mitzvah Yidiyas Hashem, that the Etzem should also be mortgaged in the Mitzvahs. That doesn't express the Nekud of the Moir himself. Ash'egin Teira is not the way Elokus is Mitzvahs in the Ferach HaNibra. Teira is with Eibishter is Ba'atzman. Teira is the Olav Chachmadash HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You say the Gemara says, Shnaim, the Mishnah, many Mishnah, Shnaim Yasam Metal, Zerem Kulashali, the Psak is Achleik. In Teira, why isn't they get this din, the Shnaim Yasam Metal, the Psak is Achleik? Not because in case there's one thing going to be a story of people fighting over a talis, you have to, the rabbis have to know the psak, so therefore they just the Mishnah Mechleiku. Teirach Chachmadash HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says there's no mitzvah, there's no veld, there's no mitzvah, there's no dayan, there's nothing there. The Eibishter is saying all of Chachmas say that Ilu Yitzur there's going to be a people fighting over a talis. His Chachma is Mechayiv Yachleiku. It's not the way Lukus is already a mucker or a tnu of being payal on veld. It's in vas b'shteit the Eibishter's Chachma. So that's one, but that's the reason why it's got Torah lishma. Because when a person's doing a mitzvah is there's a command for you to do it. We need your ma'aser. It's got Torah lishma. There is matik shitz. I need learn Torah. It's not about Torah. It's not about Torah being payal on you, being mezach your mitzvahs. It's not, a person learning is not that you're learning in order for Torah to be payal on some ila in your union. You're learning Torah about doy the Eibishter. It writes also mitzvahs. I need learn the mitzvah doy the Eibishter. A mitzvah you don't have the Eibishter the way he is batzmos. Is the Eibishter is already connected to being mitzvah a person. So it's not me'ain, the Indian of Hamoy who is Galus, which is Elokus is not bound to any other mitzvahs outside of him himself. Not the ways in Emtsai. Mitzvah is already the Elokus is in Emtsai, the Rebbe's Lashon here. Mashiach in Esek HaTeira, Teira is the Elokus Batzmusay, not the ways of Makar from Mitzias. The Elokus Batzmusay, and all of Chochmah say that Ilu Yitzir, there's going to be a talis, his Seichel is Mechayev Kach V'Kach. It's not about, there's no Mitzias of a talis here. All right, the Rebbe is not that can in other places. I just want to bring out the point why the Rebbe brings here Esek HaTeira L'Shma. So Akalponim, now the Rebbe adds, so the Rebbe is saying before, what's the Maaseh of the sin which brings the Bias Melech HaMashiach Atzmi is learning Torah only mitzad for the sake of the Eibush himself, without any other cheshbenis, not even cheshbenis the kedusha. That's not the ganze knage. Not the way Elokus is bound to any tnua of bittul or mitzias. The Elokus is batzmos. I learned Torah about doy the Eibush, not because he's going to gain something, not because he's going to be in his battle. But doy the Eibush. Now the Rebbe adds is a certain type of learning which expresses this type of learning Lishma. The Rebbe spoke before the kavan of learning Lishma. Then there's a certain eifin of limud which is behesim, which expresses that kavan of Lishma. So the Yid was learn if your whole purpose of learning is to gain something, to know vitzum b'ayna sukkah, then from learning the chalagim and sukkah in Torah, which are negeya, or in a broader if a person is learning in order for it to be pearl on his nefesh, so he only learns those chalagim and Torah which have a pull on your nefesh. So why do we find sefer? We find the sefer, the erhad, kol ha-Torah shalapeh kol, kol ha-Chazir shalapeh. Why is he have kol ha-Torah shalapeh? Why is sefer HaRambam? Was besteht the yichudis of sefer HaRambam? That is kol ha-Torah shalapeh. The Ram could have made verschiedene svarim. He could have made the same. He made Meir Devuchim, and this he could have made a Persian Mishnayis. Could have made a sefer being Masber Hilchas. Don't call Mishnah Torah. He could have made different svarim. The Ram made one. He say one chibur, which is kol yudal, which is kol ha-Torah shalapeh. There's Masber here because inside the way the Torah, the way it's expressed in the Rambam is the Torah, the way it's chad with etzim. There is Torah, the way Torah is already a mocker from Mitzias, and there's a schalkus. Mitzad the darg of Torah, the way it's already in Yana is a hira, how a person should behave. That aspect of Torah, the way Torah is already a mocker to direct the person to be so there's a schalkus. The same way you get that person, the fact that there's 12 months a year. So there's that chelik in Torah tells you how to behave sukkahs. There's this chelik in Torah tells you how to behave Chanukah. It's two separate inyanim. Never shown can ain't sefer at them. It's two separate inyanim. In Shulchan Aruch you have this sim. That's his verschiedene inyanim. There's no akdam in Shulchan Aruch that I'm starting to build for you from scratch, and it's kailo this and this thing, and he tells you the whole. And I'm mesadet according to organized according to the concepts. There's no such akdam. Shulchan Aruch is telling you what you need to do today. You need to do this. A sim and aleph. I wake up in the morning. This and this. There's no connection between one and the next. Because there it's Torah the way Torah is Zayirah, how you should behave. The Rambam is not Torah the way Torah is Zayirah, how she behave. Torah the way Torah is Chad with the Eibishter. Torah the way it's Chad with the Eibishter is one akudah. The entire Torah is one akudah. In other words, in was hat sich Atzvos reingelegt, in Torah as one unit. The same way the Eibishter is Echad, mitzad the point of view of Torah, the way it's one with him, it's a levush kaviyachol to him, the whole Torah is one akudah. It's not separate in Yana. The fact that Torah, there's a schalkus, there's this in it, that in it. That's all the way Torah. Not the way Torah is batzmusay. Not the way Torah is chad ma'atzim. It's the way Torah is already a mocker or being pile on the mitzias. Torah as a mocker being pile on the mitzias. That's already there's a chad. There's the etzim, and then there's the shleimus, or there's the able should be a mocker on the mitzias. The kavan of everything is for the sake of Torah. The kavan of everything is that the etzim zal zachem, but the chitzeni is just three different arguments. So which sefer expresses begali, that aspect in Torah, the Torah is chad matzmus, is a sefer ayat. Das ist noch gesagt. Das da hat jem halt ein siebtes Wort. Mit getef ist wenn die Jana befen kodi. Okay. Punkt diese Jana, so the Rebbe is more marchiv. Okay, but this is the point you have here also. Where? Now some pratim, I mentioned yesterday the Hadran Tashon and Beis, there's the Hadran Nuches. This Indian, first of all, the mile of Torah over mitzvahs. And the fact that Torah, that mitzvah, the darga, that there's two inyanim. There's Torah as a yirah to be on the person, and there's Torah as a reis b'kshur kol achad. Torah the way it's a keli, it's miyuchad with the Eibishter. We look at batzmusay, and there, ganz Torah is in a kudah. There was an answer also, I think, in the Hadran Memches, that many places there speaks about this. I mean, Hadran Memches, I mean the Hadran al Hashas Mishnayis. I think there also there's a Hadran Tashon. There's a few places. So the Rebbe read that and why Matan Torah. So there was. Shamer v'zacher b'diber echad nemru. Masheina pei yochel l'daber. Why the Eibush have to show? The Eibush doesn't make nisim l'migna. What? So Rebbe's masber that mitzad Torah was gal the Torah the way Torah is miyuchad with etzim. The way Torah is miyuchad with from the point of view of a lukus, so to speak. Zacher and Shamer is both one akudah. Yeah, I spoke about this yesterday inside the Seichel Arab. Okay, nishu v'chazim. Okay. Pizish levayer gam masha Rambam b'seich hakdamos there was the Rambam. The first every sefer has a pasuk. So the psicha, the pasuk that he brings in the beginning of the sefer is oz le'evish ba'bita kol mitzvah. What's the pash? Shaykh is a pashtus. Shaykh is a pashtus. The pasuk is ala sefer mishnah Torah, which is keilol halach is the kol mitzvahs. So idea about the kol mitzvahs oz daf kol le'evish. That's the Rambam is minamis. When am I not going to be embarrassed? When am I not going to be ashamed? When I have an erzet gans mitzvahs. Oh, so then the Rebbe thinks it's a nice melitza le'evish. But there's a diuk in there. V'shleima shebaloshen le'evish merum is a ili shevidias kol mitzvahs ba'bidi kol mitzvahs. The ili there was spoken to be that. There says before, ei ba'yid learn Torah v'aler vil zayin ein zach mit neivishten. The Gavit for that you need the whole Torah because it's one akudah. Shloime is that tefisa l'kus is through the entire Torah. So that's in them loshen is merum is os le'evish ba'bidi kol mitzvahs. They was like this. Yes, because that should os le'evish. He's not going to be embarrassed because anybody who's asking him something is going to know the answer, something like that. They're saying it's more of a primus union. The mile of habit comes to say is that with that you have a tefis in lukus. And what's that done to leivish? Get the Rebbe embarrassed. Here the Rebbe says could this appear with them? Merk no shkos varam look say this. Yeah, the case of Va'im Malim. Medim esem kayach ed sheker u beishes beneget ed sheker. So the bezdin has to threaten or give them scare them, so to speak. They should make sure that they should not be made Eder Sheker. They tell them the chaymer of Eder Sheker, and then the Rambam adds u'beishes hameidba, the embarrassment. Someone that lied in Bezin came as a liar. I don't know if today people are embarrassed, but originally people min hanushi was embarrassed when it was as bar as him geliked. B'chol ha'yisurim sheb'tayra, keilik ha'yisurim dal Mrs. Bezdin, which chamurim yesem yesem Eder Sheker, sh'rak yisur lav. L'matzinu she'yidilem, beishes v'elas, every Avera gives you beishes. Gehert is eight gezindigt in Yonam of Dal Mrs. Bezdin, it's also a busha. We don't find that it was all dermon and you master the people. You tell them the busha that you have from doing the Avera. Ma'al keshav yuchad Eder Sheker daf kevinin ha'beishes. Ba'elam ha'ba. Shloime Rabbi, the Rebbe sagt das. Ist es so as a word. First, the Rebbe touches. The Rebbe is moving in a way from what we're speaking about. Us, the Rebbe is going into. We're going to get to the speaking Eder Sheker for a couple of minutes. Then we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the Eder before. The Rebbe is speaking like this. Mitzvah Sheyid. The Rebbe is speaking now pipashtas. The Mitzvah of a Yid is Eidos L'Hakadosh Baruch. We're not speaking on Yonim at Primis Atayra Atzmos. But that's pashtas. The Mitzvah of a Yid is that he testifies on the Eibishter. Atem Eikon Shekot Pasuk says Atem Eida. Yidden are the Eibishter's testimony. How are the Eidos? Aidea Nagos Atev Vayisharu Umeid Al Tev Vayisharu L'Hakadosh Baruch Kaviyach. A Yid behaves. Ve'Yid Avzach Film. And he's Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. So people see that someone that lives according to the Eibishter directives is such a noble person, is such a well-behaved person with manners and morals, all the Sachen. So that's made on the Eibishter's Tev V'Yeshem. Everything Derech this is a big Gemara. Gemara says that what's bashit v'ahavta shama lekecha. V'ahavta also means lashon pu'ula. You should make people of the Eibishter. Shehei shem shemayim misayiv ayodcha. Ayid was 40 Mensch. Ma bries emri salav plain shalom atayr. Zet me zafayin read. Ru kamen noim drachim. Kamen zkonim meisav. Avdi ata shebechoi spar. So the Eibishter himself beringt sich mit them that you see this person is living according to my directives, and look what a good person he is. So that shows the Eibishter is a tzedek v'yeshem. Yeah, the Ram says, Allah is a paket. That if a Yid first chishum v'darf, it's chil Hashem. Oh, so a piece of it, and verstehen why that gebeid. So the mitzvah of a Yid is to testify on the Eibishter's ilui, on the Eibishter's tevi Yoshem. Through his behavior, a Yid's behavior in a correct way, he's made on the tevi Yoshem of Elukus. Oh, so the piece of it, to verstehen, what's the bush of being made in the Sheker? So like this. A person is there in Avera, Chal Shabbos. He's still a trustworthy person. Trustworthy guy. People, a trustworthy person. So you could rely on his word. Mashiach is someone that lies. He has no problem saying a testimony of Ezra Sheker, so he loses his whole. You can't trust him, so to speak. He doesn't say these words, but it's as if. When can you say this person's behavior shows how good the Eibishter is? But if everything he's doing is a show, we can't wissen, was halt was halt nicht. That you have the Eder Sheker. Someone in the Chalga and Shabbos, he's still the qualities that he has are still trustworthy. So the good things that he has could be an Eidus for the Eibishter. Masha'inkin imitzer was liked, he has no problem saying one thing and meaning something else, so then the whole story is his whole trustworthiness is bad. He says, Pizzi Yuvan Shav get the sheker, why? Ki kol yisur v'inyan in pratim. Masha'ink shmedi the sheker, shadez and asa ahit, there doesn't touch his pratim. There already says it. So the Rekud is when someone is made in the sheker, he violates the fact that he's an Eidos on the Eibishter. You can't deal. You can't trust him. You can't build anything based on the way he behaves. So now, what happens when a person becomes Eipech Eidos Sheker? The Rebbe is saying here that the klolos in Yonah V'Yid, every mitzvah is you do this, you do that. What's the purpose of all mitzvahs? That is als Chareiz Vais and Durch Hayid, the Eibishter is Yuli. That klolos in Yonah V'Yid is to be an Eid for the Eibishter. Putting on tefillin and keeping Shabbos, that's all practical things. What's the general goal? The klolos in what's the general muhus that we're trying to derive through all these pratim? That what's the purpose of Ava? Sheishim Shemayim is Ava. The whole Nikodah of Rebbe speaking the Lashon, the signet of Allah. But the purpose of Allah is, or a general goal, the general mukhubah of Tereh Mitzvah is that through the Anhag of a Yid, Zalzacherim Gachlas Hashem Elokuz Lo Meir Zanavah. Should be a Tereh B'Tachtenim Elosh Nachzav. Elokuz should be Meir. A Yid, if he can't trust his behavior, so he's violating, so his actions don't show on anything. He's behaving that way. He's for show. He doesn't mean what he's doing. So what are you going to give him? There's nothing to be inspired over here. So that he loses his Eidos and Alakus. So that's a chesar in klolos in Yonah. And now the Rebbe adds a chesar in klolos in Yonah. That's baishas. That's bullshit. And now the Rebbe says a few words. Why busha is a hefsid in klolos in Yonah. But this is the point to it. The point the Rebbe said over here, 2 points. Number one, which is not the regular points, but number one is that klolos in Yonah of a Yid is to be an Eidos, that through him should be seen the Eibishter's Teviation. And that's they say that's not just another prat. That's the general goal from all Teviations that a Yid does. And the second thing is that a Yid was liked, so that's a b'gam in the klolos in. His words and his behavior lack already some takeif, some trustworthiness to it. So there's a miyut, not in a prat. Like I'll be a prat, so Israel the sheker could be even more kal than some being Mechal Shabbos. That's Isra Skila. This is Isra Lav. But in Mahus, this is a pgam in his general purpose why he's here. What's Hatzot done so baishas? So the Hadfiza doesn't explain why it's doing baishas. The point that the Rebbe says is there's 5 tashlum in nizikin. There's nezek, tsar, dipi, shabbos, and baishas. So besides everything else, you can define what the loss was. Let's say nezek, a person chas v'shalom lost a hand, lost an aver. You could define what the loss was. He could have done this and this. Now he can't do it. So he lost 10 chveis, the value that he lost. He had the ripui. He had to go to the doctor. Costed him his bills to go to the doctor. Costed him money. You could define what the loss was. Al deres hasheves, he had to leave and miss work 2 weeks. Okay, so I mentioned matum pashem. What did he lose? What exactly did he lose when he embarrassed him? What was damaged? He was embarrassed. What was damaged? So damage. It's a different type of damage. A person that loses his dignity, he's ashamed. That affected his nefesh. That affected his mahus. Didn't affect the kayach prat. When someone wasn't able to go to work for a week, the person was paying him in his mahus. It was a physical damage. It's a klapagavar. He lost money, and he wasn't able to go to work. It's not you weren't paying him his nefesh. You weren't paying him his mahus. You weren't. This person now was ashamed. He wasn't ashamed. The person got hit and damage. You have to pay for it. It's a monetary loss. I mean, it's not monetary loss, but you can describe the loss. It's not a pagam in the mahus of this person. It's a pagam in a certain tool that he had, which has to be paid. If you embarrass a person, you touch the person's nefesh. Human being is a certain dignity, a certain mahus adam. A person which is a shamed person, it's not a chisan in guf, that's a chisan in nefesh. So the Rebbe says, when you get to mitzvah, all other mitzvahs, they're not paying with the mahus of the yid, in his nefesh. They're paying him in ma'isa. And the sheker is paying him in mahus. Let's get the Rebbe's like. So I get the baishas who chisarin be'inyan nafshi. That's why interesting thing. That's why there's chilukim. That means la'ara. All other nizakim, nezek, someone sheves. There's no. Every person is the same. How much days does he go to work? How much money he lost? There's no difference between baishas is lefia mevayish on his bayish. A young person, older person, a person with this position, that position. The tashlum of baishas is totally, and according to who embarrassed, because it's more a nafshis thing. It's not a physical a physical damage. Was can make it in an objective way. It's more what pay. You embarrass the person, so he lost his dignity. He lost his cover. He lost his chshivas. However way you're going to touch.
Tsar is also the thing.
Tsar is a physical thing. Tsar is everything's tsar. Tsar is a physical thing. Tsar is not. Tsar is a physical tsar. Pain. Pain is a gashmic thing. No, but that's how much pain there is. How much pain there is. Here, Marshal Bush, you're saying there's technical. There's technical. Why is it that a person is more embarrassed? I'm saying tsar. There's certain things that are painful. The question is how much you're gonna, how you made it tsar. How much would a person pay? That's something else. No, tsar is b'shavet. The chilik is when you pay nezek tsar together, then you're mechalik. How much would you pay to get it with a sam or not with a sam? If you only pay sam tsar, I don't want to go to the brother. But if someone didn't just got, you say what's the tsar over there? Someone just caused the person pain. He didn't get there's no nezek. Doesn't have to go to the doctor. And there's no damage. You didn't lose an area. Just tsar. So that's one tashlum. I don't think there's chilukim there. There's chilukim when you have nezek and tsar. So then you're paying for the nezek anyway. So what's the additional payment for the pain? So then how much a person would pay to have the same nezek without the pain? So there's chilukim. How much would a person ready to pay? But not in the gam. There's a difference. In Baishes, it's an actual thing. So it depends on who is mavayisha. It's not a maisa that causes a hefsed. See the Rebbe brings it over here. Again, by Chasam ini nafshi. Afshe gufe meni olei chasam muma. The lake nezek tzar libi v'sheves shem chisarim begufe. Oy behergish gufe. L'chein shava bekel. Pain is pain. It doesn't mean who gave you the pain. Pain is pain. There's a shayla something else. When someone say it was menatek yodi, and you're paying for nezek already, so you're paying him for the fact that he made him lose. So what's the additional payment of tzar? So Abdam Zakman, the shayla is, how much is a person ready to pay if he was anyway getting chas v'shalom amputated his hand through tsar or without tsar?
But isn't that every single person based on how much you pay?
I'm telling you, that's only when there's nezek and tsar together.
Fine, let's say even.
No, but that's not. But the pain is pain. There's no difference between how much should a person. Some people handle pain better, but the pain is the same pain.
Some people will take more.
Some people handle pain better. So for them, if they're anyway going to have to amputate their hand, how much would they pay in order that it should be without pain? But that's a different. Anyways, Lomer, the Nekuda is that it's in guf, not in nefesh. That's tsar is physical pain. It's not a. Oh, so the chore, there's no chisar in the guf. Avali idach benegel nefesh hari adam bazi ma'abed kol teichni. He loses his whole muhus. I'm saying the chshivas of the nefesh is that he's a nefesh that represents something. He's a muhus. He's an embarrassed muhus that there's a zilzul in this muhus. No one takes him seriously. And nicht ernst the mensch. So then the whole muhus adam nicht da. If people don't give you any, if you don't have covet, if you're mizazel, you're considered ashamed in people's eyes. You're adam buzzer. So that's a begam in the nefesh. He's not. There's no muhus behind this person. So that's a chisar, not stam a prat. That's a chisar in the davar kol. You could have someone you could have a mensch that's chavetz abar seichel abar midas. When people are disgusted by him, I don't mean disgusted by gashmis, but he's a fashemter mensch. He has there's a word for it, I remember the word, but the person that lost his covet, is mizazel on them. So the whole muhus is yishta. If no one values this mohos, a nefesh says that he's a person with a chshivas, with a stance, represents something, huh? Self-worthiness. Yeah, let's stop sabart. Adam bazim abed kol teichne. Yeah, lamer zen with the Rebbe sagt. Chine ben gei edi sheker. Ima yesh ben gei lechem risa b'anshi, hurak yisro lav, aval ken de zed afke nasahi because inyanim abed kol teichne. I'm saying in the Hadran, there's many Adar. This is a word. This is not. I'm saying the Rebbe is masber before the Rebbe explains. Behemshich how the Rebbe is learning the whole Hadran, the whole Indian. The Rebbe is touching over here a musik of Beishis and Apipashtus. Why is Eidish Sheker more better than everything else? Because Eidish Sheker makes a person less trustworthy. And as that person has to be through his meisim, bring out Ili of the Eidish. But then Mr. Like, he loses that. So that's a Pgam in his Mohos. A derech like Busha is a Pgam in the Mohos Adam, not in a Prat. A person losing his chshivas and people don't take him seriously, don't take him that his Mohos has any meaning. That's a very deep chisaron in Mohos. This guy's not a somebody. People don't consider him anything. Guf, everything is there. Seichel is there, Midas is there, Zahayad is there, but in the Mahus is lacking. So that's the reason. Now the reason explain the Fizeh according to the Sachat Tifraiv. What's the Pshat Atam Eida in a Sachat Tifraiv? And B'meile, any Pgam, but that was going to touch the Hemshach that was saying the whole Hadran. So Pizah Yuma Gam Nigeli Nenem. Then was Bashte the Ili from Abiti Kometz Yisacho, das is Lei Eidish. That was what the Zabart. What does the Rebbe say before? That in order, the Indian of El Gabi, Kuchabrichu, El Gabi, El Kuz is Batzmusay, Gans Teres Ein Nekud. The whole Erais is Chad with Kuchabrichu. And there's one Nekud. In order for a Yid, so this Achet where mit Nebish Nevi is darf to sein, Teire, in order for a Yid to be this Achet with Kuchabrichu, is dafka through having the entire Teire Erais. A Yid nemt a Chelik in Teire, so the Chelik in, we're talking about being this achad that the lukus is higher than being a makkah for mitzvahs. In order to access through Torah, b'shleimus, a lukus is be'etzem that from having gans Torah. Now, so the Rebbe says here, as I've heard, ha'inin da'atem eida, mashi Yehudi yu eida. The Rebbe touches a lot of. You'll see in the whole Hemshach. There's mishkin pashto yin. Well, let's see first shlab by shlab. Ha'inin da'atem eida, mashi Yehudi eida s'la kadosh baruch hu b'shleimus is nicht nor like I said before api pashtus. That he behaves well, and the way he behaves, people say, "Wow, as I say, it's meant Atem Eida and Amitas Indian. Atem Eida Amitas Indian is that as Durch a Yid, Zetzach on the Eibishter. A Yid testifies on the Etzem of Elukus. How does he testify? Because there's ein Zach with the Etzem of Eibishter. Wie wird ein Zach? With them that he learns Kol HaTorah Kula. In Kol HaTorah Kula you have Kutshabrichu. In the entirety of Eiraisi you have Kutshabrichu. So he says, "Ha'idei dias alos Kol HaMitzvahs." Mit dem wird er jeden Eid beschleimas auf Nebischen Verwas. Mit Kiva schon mit Zimmer Zeinizbarich, was Hur Zeini Echad, Deisher Zeinizbarich, which call it Tarik Mitzvahs. That this Indian, the way the Ratzin is one thing with him. Rettishvi, the Ratzin is a marker for telling a person how to behave. The Ratzin, the way it's one with who, there, call it Tarik Mitzvahs, him Ratzin Echad Kanal. So Shas, Yid Veis Kol HaTorah Kula, Nimtza Begili B'Diaz Shel Adam, Shas Bem he knows in his mind. The entire Kol HaTorah Kula, was hat bei sich in Kopf? The ganze Etzem is Meir ben Begoli. So who made it? What happens if he doesn't know the whole Rambam? It's felt as an Edus. So he's missing in his Edus. If through him Zetzach is Begoli Elikus, or the entirety of Elikus, the Etzem of Elikus, B'shleimus on the Eibishter. Was felt? A Prat? Felt ich Prat. His Edus is lacking. His Edus is lacking. That's Chisar Nekol Sinyon. Sabusha.
Now already he's learning with an agenda.
There's no like in Busha. What's the agenda?
The agenda that they should be given. It's not just the
What's the pshat should? What's the pshat should be given? That his whole mitzvah should be the Eibishter. If it's about him, so that's already a nituk. The Shloime going to say later. In the Mahus, the Shloime about him is that your whole mitzvah is just to testify on him. It's not about you at all. It's not in order for me to be I'm saying, but the Rebbe says here, I'm saying the words the Rebbe is saying here is the shleimus of Eidos Nalakus is and Eidos Neibishter is that the ganze Neibishter Kabiyol means the ganze Retzim. Wo setzach begoli the ganze Retzim? In Eiraisa. And in Eiraisa the whole Torah is one akudah. So in order for a Yid to be made by himself and begoli the Retzim is through Kol HaTorah Kula. Eibsefeld das felt in the Iker in Yonei Vayid, which is to be that durch Em soll sich sein Lukus. Und durch Em soll sich sein der Retzim von Lukus. If he's missing that, so he's missing Kol Smehusik. Sabusha. When are you not going to be embarrassed if Abita comes to say? He says, V'zehu, ich gepash the Werte, V'zehu, Masha'ili, Abita comes to say, Olei Eivish, Tafke. Gam Kshir, Rebbe says, when a Yid doesn't know Shabbos, that's going to cause him a nezik. Nichshal, Muktzah, other stuff, so it's going to cause him damage. A Yid which doesn't know Hilchas Taharis in the Rambam is not going to cause him any damage. But the Elikus is not made by him in his Me'ach B'Shleimus. So he's not testifying B'Shleimus on the Eibishter. So it's a bush. Gam K'shedei Rak Eisam HaHalacha Shenegim B'Zman Hazeh, which then Le'yachsar Me'umah. There's no Nezek. A Yid knows everything that he has to become out to the mitzvah. You want a Yid base all the halachas that relates, that apply to his behavior. Nothing wrong. He's going to know everything. He's not going to have any nizakim. But Aval became Yesh Lizbeishish Misach Shechaser Etzle Be'ikr Inyani. What's Ikr Inyani? To be a mirror for the Eibush. Atamida. But Dafka Oz Le'evish by B'Kir Kol Mitzvah. Shkin Posh Inyani. Well, let me get a bit because the punchline of the evening. I say we're learning how to fast, but that's there's what to think about, and every sift is what to think about and process. I'm saying. Okay.
So we're starting again after Purim.
No, I'm saying is that sometimes it's the idea was made that only some Maamar Chassidus can trachten. I'm saying you can trachten also a Hadran on the Rambam is what to think about. Okay, Apikol and Al Yumtak. Gam Shakesha the Sim Sibir Mishnah Torah must off. Pikol and now if Yumtak Gam Shakesha, the Rebbe is not saying there's Nekudis in the Hadran which are being expressed in the Hemshech HaSifrim. Pikol and Al Yumtak Gam Shakesha the Sim Sibir Mishnah Torah must Chalos. Ulay like Amaloch Rishenish La Sefer Gam La Pozikol Zevish and Nikol Sefer Shos Vas Chazir Mamsheh. The Rebbe always, I mean, it's in Keres and Svarim, they Mekasha the end of the beginning, not Chilas and Sefer. So usually you always Mekasha the Siyam Sefer Hayad, the first halacha, which is a very apparent connection because they both speak about Mitzvahs Dias Hashem. The first halacha in Sefer Hayad is when we get to Mitzvahs to say Leida Sheshem Matzah. And Adar is the last halacha is about the Shleimus of Dias Hashem Matzah. The says man will be Dias Hashem B'Shleimus. But the Rebbe says here, Apia and Bar Le'il. When it gets to Oz Leivish with the Kovetz Sesecha, Yumtak, the connection between the Siyam of Sefer HaRambam to the pasuk the Rambam brings at the beginning of the Sefer. What's the connection? Look at what the Rebbe says here. These words weren't brought out, but that's the inner core of what the Rebbe is saying all the time. What's for a limit of Torah? Shinyonehu Leisha Torah Lamedes is a Adam Masha Olav Las is a Adar Masha Adam Nasa Eid Al Rosan Hakadosh Baruch. See what the Rebbe touches it. How does the Rebbe define? What's the difference between learning Torah, Stamas learning Torah, learning Torah Lishma? What does the Rebbe want to bring out? There is a person is a Metzias. And there's the Eibishter lowered himself down, so to speak, to give him directions how he should behave. There's many targets in that, but it's all, even in Metzias Tikdush, in Yod Elikus, to be pearl in his Metzias. Mezachich is Metzias, being Mevatel is Metzias. It's all the way Elikus relates to the Metzias all. That's one evening that which the Rebbe says in a more broader way, that's learning Torah Leida Samaisa Shayasim, which literally means learning Torah in order to know what to do, but also in general. His tfis of Torah is that Torah is a Torah is he's a person, he's a Metzias, and Torah affects the Metzias. Elikus relates to Metzias, is Pearl on the Metzias, is Mezachel the Metzias for Ketzvah. Then there's something else. There's the Eibishter that has no shaykhs to the Metzias. There's the way the Eibishter is Batzmusik. Which there's was in der einzige Indien, der Eibishter besteht nicht von, der Eibishter besteht nicht von Tonnen der Welt. Being Pearl, Bittel on Welt, Mezachel Welt. The Eibishter is Atzmusik Baruch his Hula Vadihu. There's him himself. There's no tefisa smagam to any other mitzvahs outside of him himself. And there's Torah the way Torah is meyuchad with that argument. From that point of view, what's in Yoneh of Torah? What's in Yoneh of Limud Torah? Not that the Eivishter should show the person what to do. That he should elevate himself, that his whole inyan should be the Elyon. There's one in the Limud Torah is as the Eivishter is lowering himself down to him to show him how to behave. Then there's another Eivishter. The Eivishter gave us the possibility to elevate ourselves that we should reflect him. It's a whole different Indian. Not that. So the is der Zach. In was the ganze Beziehung von der Mensch. Geht der Rest in sich. And sein ganze Indian is that the Elyon should be Nizgala through him. I'm saying Nizgala is not the word. The Indian is the Elyon. That's the Rebbe's lashon here. Not in Yoni Leisha or Teirem Lemes Adar Masha Allah. Adar. Adar Nasa Eid. Al Rosan Hakadosh Baruch. Al Retzeni Ha'atmi Shalamayim Mishayachas Lemes. This is the way the Eibishter, the way Torah is higher than Shayachas Level. In Yoni is not to be a pearl, not a bittul on felt, and not a Metzias on felt. There's Elikus Kamei Shu Batzmusik. What's in Yoni be that der Eibishter Kamei Shu Batzmusik a das is ein Inin. That's the Limud Torah Lishma. In Yoni is Elikus Kamei Shu Batzmusik. Das is ein Inin. And Sof Kol Sof, Vibada Dasa the Remes, it's going to permeate everything. As I said before. If you're connected to the Etzem, Ayid was in from Moir, it's going to be Pel and his Mayach. The Etzem has no definition. But the Shal is, what's the Yisai? They were saying, what's an Aveda? Which is Behesim. Tidin of Melech HaMashiach Atzmai. As Ayid, his Aveda is not a Lakus, the Lakus relates to him. It's the way he is focused on a Lakus. The Indian is the Ebershter. Und das ist eine ganze Sache. To be a simon for the Ebershter. To be a sign for the Ebershter. Not that he's a being and the Ebershter is here to affect him, to elevate him. And the Rebbe says, "Azah even for learning, they say nifalo inin the Beis HaMashiach." I'm saying it. Sehr starke Esis over here. Etzem inin the Beis HaMashiach shalom mitikun oil. I'm saying the Rebbe is saying here, Ayid. There's what to speak about the Rebbe. I'm just saying that. The whole Nikud of Melech HaMashiach Alein, Sazam is certain Melech that his Indian is to be Ibrahim to the Eibishter. Not the way Lukus has a Shaykhis to Mitzias, being Payla Bitton is Mitzias, being Payla Zichar is Mitzias. So Dan Eibishter is an emes of Lukus. And what Bashir Gans Mitzias for I mentioned? To be an 8 for that emes. To be a 7 for that emes. You see, in Lahavdil, there's say one person is someone learns Chassidus. I'm just saying a Dugma Bama. But someone learns Chassidus that the focus is. I'm not. This is not. I'm just saying Indian. But Imam learned in order. The purpose is there's him, and the purpose is the Indian giving him directives how to live, or that through him, their emes from their Indians all there. It's an Adar Sarzach. That he should be a simon for the Indian, not that the whole Indian is about the Indian relating to. There's the Indian b'fnei atzma, and mahus b'fnei atzma. On Zayn Mitzi is there to be an aidus for that Indian. So the Rebbe says, and through Azasur, that's the limit of Torah, is learning the whole Sefer Hayat. Which the purpose of learning Sefer Hayat, in Yoni of that limud, is not in order to know what to do. In order to know the Omer of Shulchan Aruch, and it's going to be more clear. Here, it's the Tfisen Olukus. Okay, let me say. Here, by the way, I mean, I mentioned this already. Okay, we'll see this if. Yesh Laisif. Sheinin by Bita comments is Sachel Kosher, later I can call us Hilchas Mashiach. Through learning such a if. Vet Veren Bias Mashiach. But Nachmer, Elegam, Ma'alocha, Achreno, the Siyam, V'chaysim, HaSefer Mamish, U'ba'esas, whenever it touches very Gishmak, U'ba'esas man, Le'yisham, Le'rov, V'le'melchama, Le'kine V'sachris. So in Pashas, you touch his, you touch it before in the Hadran, there won't be any hunger, and there won't be any war, there won't be Kine V'sachris, and the whole only occupation is going to be L'das Hashem B'vad. But the Rebbe touches now that these in Yonim, the Rambam's Meram is, there's Kamei Fanim Limud HaTorah. There's Limud HaTorah in order to lay this when I say Shayas. There's Limud HaTorah to Mizachet and Mitzvah Yisad. Then there's Limud HaTorah not for the sake of the person. Not for any other motive besides for the Indian Ali. And that's Merumas in the Lashon HaRambam, Ilayi Yisham Le'rav Le'melcham. Le'rav Le'melcham is different a Fanim Limud HaTorah. That's what it is. Kutas Abir B'zeh. But Dargeh the Limud HaTorah v'terem tzoi le'eze Indian Achem means we're speaking about a Lakus. Not in not the way Torah is a Mahus B'fnatzmi. Not that he's the goal and we're here for it. The Torah is here to show us how to live. So Torah is an Emtzai. There's a person, and the Torah is here to direct him how to behave. Not that Torah is the Indian, and we're here for the sake of Torah. So there's common directions in learning Torah in that Eifer, which the whole sprach in the beginning of the Hadran is that the Elokus has a shaykhs to Mitzias. Whether it's Shleimos or L'mayla Meser. So it's coming from Mehem. Leida Samaysa Sheyasu, which in Yoniv, this Lima, this Ke'ain, as you see, a person's hungry. Hungry is which one?
Rav.
There brings Rav here. Huh?
Chisar.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fine. Let me say. So there's Leida Samaysa Sheyasu, in order to know Allah. Shinyani Shalimut Zeh, who Ke'ain Hasaras Dover Bulti Ratzeh. Chdeshali, Koshal B'Yisrael, there's a mitzvah say, so limud zeh koshev in shemulchama. There's a davar amenagid. In other words, there's a war. In order to win the war, you have to learn. A person could there's a person can be nichshal muktzah. A person could do things. You have to learn halach in order to know what to do. You shouldn't be nichshal, not varisa. So it's aderech mishel amenagid. But there's a more broader eifin The Gemara says, "Barasi yitzahara, barasi le'teira tachlim." That what's the purpose of living the Torah? L'natzech is yitzahara, melchemes hayetzer. And there is sachem b'shleimus. Not only in mevatel the yitzahara, but the yitzahara black is this metabel. Metabel is okay. So that's Le'ei says man le'yish sham melchamed ram means there won't be melchamed. There won't be any market for a davar bulti ratze. There won't be this market for a yitzahara. So that in limit that Torah in order to mevatel the yitzahara won't exist. A person learns Torah today because he wants to overcome a in shlili. But so there's not melchames lasla. That means also melchames beruchnis won't exist. So that type of limit won't exist. The second eifin why a person learns is the last is shalom ba'ilam. Pales an in Welt. Shlilas machlekes means uftan in Welt. Making a derbechteinim b'mezach the mitzias. Kol ater nit last is shalom ba'ilam. So lost in love there won't be machlekes. What's the name? There won't be sachrus. And there's the third eifin is Sholim hugam miloshin shleimus. In other words, not only to be prayed be mevatel nigut. You have Welt is a stira telikus, or it's not the hesed telikus. So without learn Torah in order to be mevatel in a chisan. You have a third eifin Sholim miloshin shleimus that to add it, you say a person learns in order to enhance his ruchnis. Meisiv saying kasha that's intended like kasha nafshel avai. To be mekasher is never shmur with holocaust. So that's shalom and lashon shleimus. The elokish was that's michosim. The ater has to be shleimus. Oh, it says nimtza shleimus ater b'teir emtzai kasher echad mishleishin anamel. Eifin agimel, which is shleimus, and the world itself is lacking. That's al derech rav chisan. Means the world is lacking something, and a person through learning Torah you enhance the mitzvahs. Or that is not Torah is mazin the kasher nafshel avai. So Torah is shel in of ravin. There is very the remes is shadeh Torah nishma chisan shebel. If an aleph that a person learns in order that it shouldn't be nichshal nisurim, that's a derech melchama. There's a davar, there's a nigud, there's something which might cause me to be nichshal. I learn Torah not to be nichshal. If an abeis, which is vivatal machlekes, you can have a sachras. Vos limud Torah lishma, which is a limud beif, and the also of the belong le'yeh sham le'rav le'melchama le'kin have a sachras. You vos the yama learn. Limud Torah lishma the pshat, he learns not in order for it to have ashpa on him. In order for him to be called in Yoni should be the Elim. What Halim they have been the comments in Yoni who lay bichdei shatera tifal ba'elim u ba'adam. Ela Adar. Sha'adam ye'ed al Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So das is Esas man. Shaloi yisham lei rav v'lei melchama v'lei kinei v'sachros. V'loi yeh esa kol ha'elim ela l'das savaya b'lvat. There was Maz Shabbos. What was the Safa b'lvat? V'loi yeh. If the Pashas there's no rav, no melchama. So what's the only thing that's going to be? The only thing is going to be l'das Hashem. What's the Safa b'lvad? So it attaches finish the das avay b'lvad. She'in l'das Hashem hu b'tarasi. B'li irbuv kavod nisefes. L'das Hashem. The same way you say atzmus is nicht verbunden mit kein shum pirush. Is their Indian. So a yid is this ached legamri with the etzem. Mitzad the etzem there's no tefisa smakim to any Indian outside of the etzem mamish. So don't not erali. And they say the Rebbe's Marich and the Hadran, the second two inyanim is not a we're not leaving that. Is that this inyan, which is bilvad, which is no shaykhs to any mitzias, that should also the seichos alechet mechayv zanazeh. The whole mitzias should not only be from the point of view of a lekus from the etzem. Val herzach is nishtakin zav. The seichel comes to the conclusion that there's nothing besides for the asavai, and that's asavai and eifin bilvad. Not the way the lekus doesn't need a person being bottled in. A lukus doesn't need any, is not dependent on anything. A melech ba'etzem. But this, das was an the ganze Ede von Ayid, this melech ba'etzem, which is not connected to anything outside of himself. Und der Inian, das was an the ganze Mitzvahs. It's nicht das Apostel Zach. This heard from Shalom Hartanov, I don't know if, but I think, I don't want to say things with name of people, and then, if I'm not mistaken, that the Rebbe was saying this in the Hadran, the Sir, the Rebbe said, Bein. But the Rebbe said, L'Rav, L'Macham, and Limud HaTeira, that's Shem Lavas. The Rebbe, I don't know exactly which setting, but the Rebbe said, that learn Teira, Nish Nor of Optischlag and Mesnagit. That was one of the Gemois of the learning Teira for an Indian outside of the Etzem Amish. Say in the Gdusha, that's Nish Bilvad, that's, it's the Lukus has Psayachas, for the purpose of Fatsayanis. No, that's myself, I don't know. This is ein Lord Elikus Bilvat. Anyways, das ist nicht kein Pashtin. So da was zum Ein sein.